All right, guys, if you're tuning in, we're here live with Brandon Hunter Fishing. We're not at the store today. We're actually at Brandon's man cave, but I'm not going to give you directions to it. Hopefully we get some guys in. We're a little early. Usually I'm really late. See, there's the main guy. Jeff DP is watching. I don't know if you need to watch this, Jeff. I don't think you need any tips.
You don't need no tips.
We're going to talk about pre-spawn baits and fishing on the Tennessee River. Brandon, he's a guide out here. He also does electronic lessons with Lowrance units. He's tied in with Bass Boat Technologies as well. So if you're watching the show and you like what Brandon's saying, you want to book a trip with him, just contact his page after the show. What's up, Timmons? Hey, Steve Ladd. What's up, Ron Grifton? There's the movie star Chad Porter. I think I'm going to make a shirt about your little saying on that video. What's up, Thad? Hello, Eric. Do me a favor, guys. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video. That way we can get a lot of people in there and get educated. Before I get in with Brandon, I want to talk about a bait that just come back into tacklefreaks.com. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it is this bait right here. This is the trash fish, sold out last time. This is actually the 8-inch version. This little plastic piece right here comes off. It protects the tail. This is a 6.6 swim bait on the Tennessee River, and I only get them in about every 3 months. It takes them a long time to pull them. This color is actually blueback herring, and you rig this. You can rig it weedless on a 10-aught on a beast hook, and I want to show you this really quick. What's up, Caesar? Thanks for the help yesterday. Hey, Jesse. What's up, Kevin Condra? On this 8-inch trash fish, if you'll notice on the lip, right under the little lips here, there's a little round piece. Tell Brandon to tell you about all the jinx I had the other day. When you take your 10-aught on a beast hook, and you see that little lip, it goes in right like that. And then it comes out the back, there's a little hook slot on the back of these trash fish, and that's where the hooks come out. I actually got to sell this one, so I'm not going to rig it up. That color's tucked out blueback herring. If you ever want to know what tucked out means, it means the bottom is white. If it says ghosted, that means you can see through, and a tucked out ghosted means it's white but see through as well. What's up, Baitman? How about the Vols last night beating the Gators? Nothing I don't like any more than a Florida Gator. So go Vols. Brandon's a UK fan, so he's just hoping they make the tournament. But it's 10-aught owner beast on the 8-inch trash fish, and you know, I just happened to be digging through Brandon's box, and I found a 6-inch trash fish. This color is tucked out just shad. These are back in stock, tacklefreaks.com. Get these while supplies last. I'll have another order come in, but it'll be mid to late April. This is one of Tactical Bassin, Matt Allen, Tim Little's favorite pre-spawn swim baits right here by Little Creeper Baits, and it is meant to be fished really slow, hence the name Little Creeper. And you can rig these on a jig head. I look for a 1/2 ounce, 3/4, 5/6-aught hook on these right here. On the big 8-inch ones, you really need an 8-aught hook if you want to rig it with the jig head. But we're going to talk to Brandon enough about our baits. Brandon, you're not fishing the tour this year. You've got another hunter on the way.
Yeah, you know, my wife and I are expecting another baby in May, so it'll be right there during the busy time. And you know, last year I took the year off fishing the FLW, and it was a good decision. You know, I don't make the kind of money a lot of those guys make, so family comes first in my book. So I decided to take a year off, and then my wife and I are expecting another one. So here we are. We're going to take this year off again, and we'll just sit back and work here at home and see how things go. So.
Well, it's going to go good, but I'll give Brandon a piece of advice. With 2 kids, no more. Don't do another one next fishing season. Get a boy and girl, be done with it. So Brandon, here we are. It is it's actually mid-February, kind of getting the later part. You know, it's a short month, but we are pre-spawn season here on the Tennessee River. And as you know, a lot of things that go on the Tennessee River fluctuate out across the United States. Texas is very similar weather patterns, eastern seaboard. If you're going out today and you want to go fish for some jinx on the Tennessee River, let's go over some of the baits and tactics you look for. I know you're a crankbait fisherman. You teamed up with Daiwa this year, actually last year. Tell us about your crankbait selection this time of year.
You know, that's probably not only when it comes to deep cranking on out in the middle on Kentucky Lake in the summertime, but probably one of my favorite ways to catch them besides that is throwing a square bill on the bank and around shallow wood, shallow cover. So probably, you know, Takahiro just won a tournament on the LC 1.5 chartreuse. I think he was throwing the T.O. Crawl.
T.O. Crawl, yep.
And then the chartreuse and black, you know, that's your two main colors. Any of your chartreuse colors and your crawdad colors this time of year, you know, it doesn't have to be Lucky Craft. I mean, that's the bait that I prefer to throw. I mean,
yep.
Anything in that 4 to 6 foot range, you know, 8 foot range when they're up there on the bank on those hot, bright, sunny days, you know, when they get right up on the bank. And then I like to have something a little bit deeper that gets down there in that, you know, 6 to 10 foot range, like the 1.5 DD there. And
yes.
that's the T.O. Crawl and the Lucky Craft.
So y'all can see the difference on that bait. The regular 1.5 silent, as they call it now, short square bill, and then you've got the 1.5 DD, which is more like your traditional deep little end style, middle end. Both are great baits. I get this question a lot, Brandon. You're on the Lucky Craft pro staff, if you want to call it. A lot of guys say, man, these baits are only $6.99 on Tackle Freaks. What's up with these baits? Are they the same as the RC 1.5?
It is the same bait. It come out of the same exact mold. Basically what Lucky Craft has done is basically took the old traditional bait and just cut the cost on packaging. I think the only difference, the inside of the bait, instead of a tungsten rattle, now it's a lead rattle, which I've thrown both of them side by side and you cannot tell the difference. So my opinion, it's the same exact bait as you've always had. They've cut the cost back to where that guy can afford, you know, a $8 bait versus a $15 bait, basically.
Yeah, and you know, Lucky Craft's been in business for what, 20, 25 years now, and I think they realize that there's a lot of guys and companies making a really good bait like this for half the price, and they want that market too. The only thing I will tell you too on the new packaging, you won't see like Takehiro's name or Lucky Craft on the back, and you won't see that stamping. Believe it or not, that's just extra pennies they want to save, and they're just passing that savings back on to the customer. Now, I do know Lucky Craft has discontinued several baits in some colors, but they had such a wide variety. It was really getting hard for dealers to carry a lot of it. When you're throwing this 1.5 or the 1.5 DD, Brandon, what kind of places are you looking at? I mean, I like to start on points, but from fishing with you, we have fish points, but there's certain types of banks that really hold those fish better in the spring.
That's right. You know, the biggest thing in the springtime is water temperature. When that water temperature is, I heard Takahiro say it a couple weeks ago on Bass Live that, you know, when it's in the mid 40s, it's almost too cold. But when it gets high 40s and it hits 50 degrees, it's time. And they'll get up those high sunny days. I mean, those fish will pull right up on the bank. And that's why I like to keep two different plugs tied on, a shallow runner and a deep runner, simply because if I'm up on the bank and I'm not getting bit, then
you can back out with this guy.
The fish are going one way. They're going back to the back of the bays, and they're thinking about spawning, and they've got to be somewhere between the main lake and the back of the bay. So my thing in the springtime, fish always relate somewhat to the bank whenever they're moving back. Now, when they come back out, they won't necessarily be bank related. They'll actually just follow the creek channels and stuff out. So something in that shallow range, rock transitions where, you know, black chunk rock, if you can find some of that. There's a lot of that where it meets pea gravel points. You know, there's a lot of miles and miles and miles of bank on Kentucky Lake and anywhere on the Tennessee River or in the South. But look for those subtle changes in the bank. You know, it might be you look up on the bank and see a wash or something coming down, you know, that's silted in over the years. You know, those fish love to get around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so color-wise, I don't know, did you put those yellow dots on there?
Nope, they come that way.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know if you've seen that on the back of this T.O. Crow. Got the little yellow dots for eyes. These are kind of hard to get. And of course, since Talk won that tournament, that 1.5's been going through the roof. Still got a bunch on TackleFreaks.com.
Reds and yellows.
That's all you got to do. Reds, yellows, or you throw one that's got red and yellow on it.
Red and yellow, yep.
And now we got a lot of muddy water here, and I imagine if you're anywhere on the Tennessee River system, you're going to have muddy water. One thing I think personally is when it gets muddy like this, these fish bite, and that's what makes this fun.
They do. You know, when cold muddy water is no good, but when that water temperature warms up as fast as it has the last few days here on Kentucky, especially, those fish will pull up on the bank in no time. I mean, they get up there quick, and it's hit or miss. You go one day and you can catch them, and then you go the next day and it's kind of slow. But you know, they're just waking up. They're getting ready to start feeding to get ready and think about spawning. So.
Now, Vincent Mina asks, what would you do different if a big cold front hits? Is that when you back out and slow down and maybe slow roll the old evergreen jackhammer?
You know, personally, in the last few years, I'm usually in Florida whenever somewhere else, in the South when it comes to this time of year. So what actually happens here, I personally don't believe that a big cold front affects those fish too much whenever they're moving back. Now,
right.
If they're spawning, if they're up on the beds or something, they might get a little tight-lipped and not want to bite. But typically, you can find a way to usually back out and, like you say, to back out and fish something a little slow, or maybe slow down in an area that you caught fish on a crankbait, slow down, fish a lightweight jig or something. They're not going to want something that falls super fast whenever it's real cold, but something that falls fairly slow, or a shaky head or something like that.
I'm backing up here to look at a comment. No, the crawl color plugs are gone now. When they were full 2 weeks ago, Nick actually got plenty of the TO crawl and Delta crawl. What's a good tilapia colored crankbait? Lucky Craft makes like a BE gill. That's a good
one, yep.
That's a good one, especially if you're in Texas. Those fish really like tilapia. Kevin, why are you so sexy? Jay, my man, you're gonna have to ask my wife on that because I hadn't figured it out. One thing I was just thinking about, and now I've lost my train of thought. Okay, as far as square bills, your rod reel selection. Are you a?
I've got one right here.
Oh, he's got one.
This is the Tatula XT. This is a $99 rod on Tackle Freaks. I know Kevin's got them on there. Mm-hmm. This is actually the 7-foot glass rod. Okay, it's actually a composite. It's graphite and then glass tip. So that glass allows them to really get that bait, allows that bait to do what it needs to do, and that graphite you can actually feel with it. The cool thing is these things are 99 bucks. I mean,
absolutely.
It doesn't feel like any $99 rod I've ever fished. This is the Tatula SV, one of the best reels they ever came out with.
Awesome.
I pair it up. I throw any of my square bills up on the bank when I'm around a lot of rock and stuff like that. I like to throw somewhere around that 14 range. Mm-hmm. Deep cranking, we throw 10 pound for the most part. But up there when you're banging on those rocks, you can actually see where this one's been banging off those rocks. I'll throw something a little bit, a little bit stouter, in that 14, 16 foot range. But that's my setup. I mean, I happen to have one sitting there, so that's the one.
What's great about throwing like square bills and stuff like this, you don't have to have a really expensive setup. I mean, Tatula rod's $99, the SV is $199, but if you want to go down to like the Tatula CT or even the Fuego, you can have an awesome square bill setup for $200.
Yeah, that's the thing. These are reaction baits and rods and the whole setup. It's you want to be able to feel what your bait's doing. That's what that glass rod allows that thing to do. But no, you don't have to invest a whole bunch of money into a setup.
Do you ever run like a 7-to-1 reel? I right now my setup's like a 5.5. I feel it's a little slow. I've always been on square bills. I would rather be a little fast than a little slow, or either the opposite.
Well, I mean, that's a 6-to-1 gear ratio. I don't think I touched on that. That's the 6-to-1. The reason I throw the 6 is because your main ones are a 5, a 6, and a 7. They make the 8s, but I don't think too many guys throw the 8. But on a square bill or shallow cranking, on a 6, you can slow it down or speed it up, either one. So
yeah.
The 5, I mean, it's a little bit slow for me. I mean, I typically fish it a little bit fast, but 6-to-1 I think is a perfect ratio.
Yeah, let's see if I got some more questions here, Brandon. I gotta lose some weight. It hurts bending over. Let's see. Thank you, AJ. I appreciate that. Did Lucky Craft discontinue the RTO series? And Richard Cobb says, Sam Lashley said they would be spawning this week on Kentucky. What do you think, both being Kentucky Lake pros? I'm not going to answer because I'm not a pro.
I'm not a pro either, but no comment.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when the water hits 50, there's going to be some fish that want to do it.
Maybe there's some fish spawning. I don't know. I'm not going to go out looking for spawners tomorrow, but water temperatures may be a lot warmer on that end of the lake, and there may be a few fish up spawning.
Thanks, KDR. I do need to give up these cold reds. I might trade them in for some white squirrels after the show. What's up, man? Down there in May to check out the shop. I appreciate it. All right, so obviously you like a square bills. What other reaction baits? I know you're a big lipless crankbait guy.
Yeah, this is the LV500. This has been a staple in the Lucky Craft line for a long time. I think they call this in Mad Crawl. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a matte finish. It's a really cool looking red color. This time of year, I like to try to stay away from the shad colors. Not that you can't catch them on it, because I've had co-anglers in the back of the boat that tear my butt up on a blue and chrome or a black.
Yeah, that's
and chrome.
right.
But I like the reds, the crawdad colors, stuff like that. But usually, if you find windy points and stuff like that this time of year, that's always a good bait to. It's not my first bait that I pick up and to just cover water with. I'm usually covering the bank with a square bill or something. But if I've got a specific spot, or if I'm targeting stumps or a shell bed or something, actually making pinpoint casts and covering an area, that's a good one to throw.
Yeah, the tactical bassing guys, no, we're not counting Jeff Deepy, who says that's his favorite. We're talking about Matt Allen and Tim Little. They absolutely love LV500. And they showed me some stuff on this, and the way this thing sits in the water, it's going to be a little nose down, and yes, they're expensive. But when that bite's kind of slow, but they'll bite a lipless, you can actually work this thing like a jig and almost drag it like a football jig, short little hops, and then land back on the nose. And it's a great bait. They get kind of hard to find. I've got some on TackleFreaks.com, but your lipless setup, Brandon, same kind of. Are you looking at a glass rod, or you go to a little bit stiffer rod for this?
A little bit stiffer rod. I think the rod that I'm throwing that on is one of the Tatula Elite Series rods. It's one that Brent Ayler designed. It's actually his chatterbait rod, but it's perfect for a lipless.
The 7.4?
The 7.4, yeah.
I've got that rod, and guys, that's a bad memory generator.
And look for Brent's actually working on a new square bill rod. It's something a little bit lighter for throwing the little smaller square bills. I think they're going to reveal that at the Classic.
So I'm going to the Classic, so obviously we're going to have some good stuff. Colors on lipless. You got any special colors, or are you sticking with square bill colors? Reds, yellows, maybe some chartreuse?
Yeah, usually on the lipless, I stick with the reds. For the most part, like I say, the shad colors, I leave that for the fall.
All right, let's see. What retrieve do you use on the lipless? Are you slow and steady, or do you I like to yo-yo it, but that's up to you.
The lipless, I fish a little faster a lot of times. You can still throw the 6-to-1, because like I say, you can speed it up or slow it down either one. But a lot of times the lipless, I'll put it on a 7-to-1 because, I can cover a lot more water with it.
Yeah. All right. In those same kind of areas that you would throw a square barrel, I know some guys, when the fish get really dirt shallow, that's when they like to trap. When they really get on top of that stuff, that's when they like to rattle.
I'm not a guy that picks up a rattle trap or a lipless like a 500 or something and just goes down the bank throwing it. Like I say, I'm picking an area. If I've got an area I know there's fish on a flat, like you say, real shallow, back in dirt shallow water, or up on a flat that's got a lot of wood or something on it, I'll sit back and throw that lipless on that kind of stuff.
Paul, there is so much stuff in Brandon's shop that it would be another 2 hours before I got done scanning around. But you've been in here. You know what this place looks like.
Paul will get to see it soon enough, I'm sure.
That's right. Brandon might even take you fishing if he could get a dadgum motor for his boat. That's like sitting in a $50,000 kayak in here. I ain't got no paddle. Let's talk about the bladed jig. And one reason I want to talk to Brandon about the bladed jig is when Brandon was on tour, and originally when we were both working at Kentucky Lake Outdoors a long time ago, Brandon got to room with Mr. Chatterbait, Brett Hyder. They become really good friends, so he knows a lot about these baits right here. When it's muddy, I like, your dark colors, but talk a little bit about why the bladed jig's so good, especially in grass lakes, and this is the evergreen jackhammer right here.
That's a bait that it's a confidence thing, I think. And you mentioned Brett Hyde. it's not a magic bait. You know, it obviously catches fish, but Brett has a lot of confidence in a bait like that. He throws it. When he goes to Florida, he's throwing it. When he goes to Seminole, he goes to places that's got a lot of grass in it, he's throwing that bait. And the reason that it basically mimics, you know, out here.
Flame crawfish? Or?
Yeah, crawfish, or it can mimic bluegill. I mean, depending on what colors you're throwing. If I'm fishing up shallow during the spawn, you know, or around the spawn, I'll throw like a green pumpkin color and put some orange on it or some chartreuse on it, you know, and mimic those bluegill that's up there, you know, thinking about spawning. And those bass will, you know, they're feeding on those as well. So.
Yeah, someone asked, got two questions on that too. Will a bladed jig work in non-grass lakes like Kentucky or Barkley?
Oh, yeah.
And do you throw the bladed jigs when the water temperature is still in the 50s? I don't know what a jackbait shatterbait is. I'm sorry. Or do you ever drag your jackhammer?
I know guys that yo-yo it like a rattle trap, but you know I've always had better luck fishing around some sort of cover. I'll tell you when that bait really shines on Kentucky Lake, especially since we don't have any grass, is the yellow flowers. And last year, if you fished Kentucky Lake, you remember we had the best yellow flower crop we've ever had that I can remember. And it was perfect because the water was up, you know, and it stayed up for quite some time back this spring. And that's something that's kind of not normal as well. You know, usually they're doing this with the water level, but that water stayed up in those yellow flowers, and that's a bait that, I mean, those fish will crush that bait right there around those yellow flowers.
Justin Conkle says he's heading to Guntersville on March 10th. What's your go-to bait?
Lipless at Guntersville.
Yeah, and it better be red. Red lipless or a swim bait around a bridge, preferably a Scottsboro tackle one. What is Brandon's go-to crank for covering water in pre-spawn?
That would be the 1.5.
Yeah, for guys that just joined, when I upload this video to YouTube, Brandon's got a really good information talking about this 1.5 LC Silent. This color's called Black Moss, believe it or not. You ever ran a trailer hook on a bladed jig?
I haven't. I'm not a big trailer hook guy. You know, I can't argue with guys like Van Dam and those guys that preach on the trailer hooks. I don't never put one on there, but maybe I'm missing the boat. But I'm really not the guy to ask on spinnerbait fishing and chatterbait fishing. You know, it's not really my deal. But
one thing I'll say about the jackhammer, yes, they are pricey. This hook right here is super freaking sharp. And on the back, that is a bait that was specifically designed for Brett Hite and the jackhammer. That's the Yamamoto Zaco. And through the water, it does not have crazy action. It's a real subtle, just a little bit of movement, but it's not too big, bulky, but it's very, you know, it's very narrow. A lot of guys just throw that Lake Fork Magic Shad on there, but they didn't, the jointings would fall out. But that's the jackhammer, and I got a big stock of these, and I'm telling you, when they start biting that bladed jig, these will go really, really quick. Let's see, we got some more questions here. You ever flip a trap around the bushes? I don't know. I have not.
No, I haven't either.
Can you have KDR on next week for a white squirrel show? We absolutely can. That'll be on my other page. What else we got, Brandon? I see out here you do have a little contact.
Yeah, you know, this is a bait that I've loved to throw the A-rig. I mean, it's one of those baits that when it first came out, we had a ball with it. I mean, we caught some big stringers on Kentucky Lake that year that Paul Lice won at Guntersville. Moorhead won the Everstart Championship that year. But it seems like those fish have gotten accustomed to it, just like anything, you know. And it's still a fun bait to fish. But one of my favorite things to fish this time of year, you know, especially when those fish are still in that colder water, in that pre-spawn, before they get on that crankbait, you know, when they're biting the jerkbait and stuff like that, is a single swim bait. Now, this one here, this is a Revenge 3/8 ounce is what I've got rigged up there. That's got the Kitech. I don't know if that's a 4.8 or
I believe that's a 4.8, and the color's probably red purple.
Yep, that's right. That's as good a color. I mean, you know, as far as those translucent looking colors, you know, and that fairly clean water that we're used to having on Kentucky Lake. But I throw that a lot, you know, out there in just open water. And a lot of times, if I'm around any kind of cover, I'll throw something with a weed guard on it, you know, that kind of makes it a little more weedless. But I throw that bait a ton this time of year.
Now, I think Blade Runner makes a weedless head, and so does Fishing 45. I really need to get those Blade Runners in. Matt Allen's about to kick my butt. When you're fishing a single swim bait like that, pound test line, and the question everybody asks me, what kind of rod. And I learned from Brandon, you do not need a broomstick.
No, I think when guys think of swim baits, especially a few years ago when the swim bait craze first started, especially out here on Tennessee River,
They think of this kind of stuff.
they think of big giant swim baits, and Loomis and a lot of those rod companies come out with these just broom handle, just really stiff rods, and I think people that throw a single swim bait, no matter what it is, they think you got to throw a really stiff rod, and it's quite just the opposite. To be honest with you, you've got to throw something. I throw a flipping stick, but I throw a flipping stick that's got some bend to it, And what you want, it's no different than like the guys that throw the chatterbait. That you'd be surprised at B Hight's chatterbait rod. It's glass, and it's like, it feels like the old David Fritz cranking rods. You want something that load up. Then it's no different. You don't want something that soft with a swim bait, but you want them fish to be able to grab it, especially when you're like out deep or throwing this bait right here. You want something that you can throw out there, and when you're winding it, they grab that bait. And if you've got a broomstick, you're going to jerk it away from them or pull it right away from them. So if you've got something that loads up, it allows them to get that bait a lot better.
So I think when I went with you, I used a Daiwa. It's just a 7.6, like medium heavy.
Yep.
It's almost like throwing a stiff crankbait rod.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. Matter of fact, it's not a swim bait, but my A-rig rod, I'm actually throwing it on a Daiwa. I actually designed it for deep cranking, but it's actually perfect for that A-rig.
Yeah. Let's see. We got some more questions here. How deep do you fish the swim bait? And what do you like at night at the end of March on Barclay, Kentucky Lake? You get the swim bait, I'll get the night fishing question.
All right, the swim bait, what do you say?
How deep do you usually fish your swim bait?
Okay. The swim bait, it's one of those baits that if they're not biting a jerk bait, that's what I'm throwing. And I'm usually looking for some kind of shallow cover. We fish it over the top of a lot of brush piles, stumps, that sort of stuff. Channel swing banks, it's one of those baits you can cover water with it. If you've got an area that there's a few fish using, if they're, especially if they're suspended up in the water column, you can fire that swim bait out there and just go down the bank and cover water with it, or just fish over a point that that you're just looking for single bites or to pull those fish up that you can see.
You use the underspin quite a bit?
Yep. Yeah, I throw it a lot pre-spawn. Yep.
The guy asked about the night. That's actually a really good question, and I think a lot of guys think you got to totally change baits at night. I don't change what I throw in March. I throw a single Colorado black spinnerbait from March to November when I'm not fishing. I throw it 75% of the time. It's all about having that big blade and thump. We got a lot of muddy water out here, so you really wouldn't even have to change. You throw a black spinnerbait in the day. I throw that spinnerbait a lot, and at night, I know some guys that crank in the spring with black crankbaits and chatterbaits. Those are really good. Just fish the same areas you were in the day. You might back off a little bit because in the spring, those fish really like to get shallow when the sun's out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing about it is when that sun gets out, especially, it warms that water temperature up quick, and especially on Kentucky Lake, you've got a lot of rocks. It warms those rocks up and it puts them right up on it.
Let's see. Late April, south end of Kentucky. Best way to catch 5 janks if they're not in the bushes. This is my buddy Rob Kennedy.
Late April?
5 janks.
Late April, gosh, if they're not in the bushes, they could be coming out. I've learned that lesson fishing the last week of April, trying to make that deep deal happen, and it's just not there yet. As bad as I hate to say it, and I do not throw it, but a Carolina rig,
absolutely,
out in front of some of that stuff. A lot of guys catch a lot of big stringers of fish on a Carolina rig.
That's the old Steve Kennedy pattern.
Yep.
Go to the back of Vickers, go to the bar in there, you catch your 5 janks in late April. All right, let's see what else we got. You've got 2 jerkbaits here. You have got this is actually a Pointer 100 DD, and this is a regular Pointer 100. So we may miss the jerkbait bite here, but it's just because the water clarity's. So tell me, what kind of water clarity on a jerkbait? What kind of areas, and when do you throw this big plug versus the shallow diving 100?
Normal water conditions on the Tennessee River, and it can be anywhere on the Tennessee River, Gunnersville or Pickwick or any of them. Most of our water clarity is fairly clear. So a jerkbait is my go-to in the spring. Especially when that water temperature is still in the 40s. You can catch a lot of big stringers, a lot of big fish come on a jerkbait. you know, these two colors here, this is the pearl threadfin shad, this is ghost minnow. If the water gets really, really clear, you know, we've seen some clean water back in the fall. I'm kind of anxious to see. It's kind of interesting. We've got all this muddy water with all this rain that we've got, and I was actually curious to see how clear the water got, but unfortunately we've had all this rain and we haven't got to see that. But this is probably, you know, water temperatures in the mid 40s. The jerkbait is always my go-to. That's two great colors right there. If the water's super clear, that ghost minnow, some of the chartreuse shads, stuff like that. And then if the water's got a little more Kentucky lake color to it, you know, it's not super clear, but it's not dirty either. You know, that pearl threadfin, or like the pearl I use, you know, something that shows up a little bit more. And I might throw something with some chartreuse in it on those cloudier days, overcast days.
All right, two questions. Brad Crum wants to know your jerkbait setup, and then Russell Johnson asks, how far is the lake from Summer Pool with all this rain? I'll just tell you, it's way far from Summer Pool.
The jerkbait setup is, I throw a little bit longer rod. I've gotten used to a 7-foot rod. I don't hardly throw anything on anything smaller. A lot of jerkbait, a lot of companies make a jerkbait rod in like that 6'6" to 6'10", but I throw a 7-foot medium. It's actually a medium light. It's the Tatula XT. That's that $100 rod again. I throw it on I think I've actually run them on a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel, and because you know you're pulling all your line in with the twitch of that rod. Correct. So when I hook one,
you won't be able to get it.
I can get him in the boat with that 7-to-1 ratio.
I'm glad you said that, because I get a lot of guys ask me about jerkbaits, and I'm not the greatest fisherman. I've gotten lucky to catch a couple big ones, but you know, I'll fish it 10, 20 minutes and put it down. I know Brandon, he'll fish it all day. Line size, I like 10 pounds. Is anything different for you?
I actually throw 8 pound on most of my jerkbaits. Anywhere in the country I'm fishing, I usually throw 8 pound Sunline Sniper.
What's cool, I want you guys to see this in this Lucky Craft, and this is kind of an OG bait. They're really, I know Mega Bass is really popular, but Lucky Craft really got the high-end Japanese style baits going in the United States. I know they were 16 bucks, but what's cool about this, if you see this, you see these little ball bearings every time I tip it? That's the weight transfer system. So when you throw these baits, I mean, for a jerkbait, dude, you can hum a Lucky Craft out there. And you see right there under the chin, that little lead strip, maybe you can see it in the side. That helps this bait suspend, and it's really cool. This one's clear, you can see that. The good thing about the Lucky Craft, when that 55 degrees or less, you don't really need any suspend strips or anything. It'll suspend right out of the package. I'll
tell you a little trick too, not a trick, but that 100 series, you know, it's like you say, it's OG, but I'm telling you that it's a lot of guys don't like to throw it because they've came out with stuff that's got 3 hooks on it. But to me, there's not a better suspending jerkbait out of the package than you can throw than a point 100.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mega Bass, but man, I've been throwing these things for a long time. Me and Brandon, I remember when they first come out, and we had racks full of them at Kentucky Lake Outdoors, and that's all guys would buy. And it's kind of weird, the Mega Bass thing didn't hit here for a while. Let's see, we got lots of questions. What would you recommend for a kayak guy for a jerkbait rod? And then, do you ever add weight to get it deeper or tend to fish unaltered? And have you thrown a wobblehead much on Kentucky Lake?
Wobblehead's always a good one anywhere in the country.
Oh yeah.
You put any kind of, whatever your favorite soft plastic crawl is, you know, put it on a wobblehead and go out there and catch them year round.
If I was kayak fishing jerkbait, I might go a little smaller rod, like a 6'3". It's a little difficult jerking and twitching in a kayak. You know, I'm talking about, you know, baits. Because the water's right there down close to you. So I know a lot of the kayak guys fish a little smaller rods, top water and jerkbait, stuff like that. Dobbins makes some nice short handle rods, 6'3", 6'4". And then what was that other question? And do you ever add weight or dots and all that stuff?
You know, the old Smith & Krogs, you know, you have to weight just about all those. Most of the Lucky Crafts. I'm not a guy that likes to see it falling. Some do. You talk to a lot of jerkbait guys, they want to see it dead still. Talk to some, they want it floating up a little bit. Most of them, out of the package will kind of float up, and that's the reason we put the dots. The Lucky Crafts most of the time are out of the package. If anything at all, they're slowly falling.
I'm the guy, I'd rather see one slowly sink, and Mark Menendez tells me the same. And his theory is, if that fish is looking at the bait, say this is the fish and here's the bait, and it's floating up, it's floating, floating away from him. If you're pausing that bait and it's on a slow sink, it'll come right there in front, and he just has to barely move to grab that bait. Let's see. What else? You got them shorter Dobbins in stock? Yes, I do, Brandon. They'll ship direct from Dobbins. What's up, Robbie? All right, let's. What else we got here? We haven't talked much about this, but this is a spinnerbait, and one of the most underrated times I think to throw a spinnerbait is in this muddy water, and when it's cold. And Mark Menendez just showed us you can do it. I noticed this one's double willow. What's your preference? Muddy water, obviously, you're probably gonna go Colorado.
Yeah, I don't throw a spinnerbait a ton. We used to make the joke, do the fish even still bite a spinnerbait anymore?
Yeah.
But because the swim baits and stuff came along. But normally in that muddier water, I want something that'll make it a little more thump. With a Colorado. This happens to be just one that I grabbed off the shelf there. That's it's a double willow. But you're exactly right. I mean, it's underrated this time of year. It's the same fish you're catching on that swim bait. When those fish get suspended out there and they're not biting a jerk bait, but they're suspended over some cover or something, this is a great bait to throw pre-spawn for sure.
Yeah, and especially if you're like this, got a lot of bait fish like Kentucky Lake, even bluegill. If you got a lot of, when it's really warm, now those bluegill get to going and stuff too. I like the gold blades. I want some flash on it. Dirty watercolor, gonna go Colorado. Chartreuse and white. And I like that chartreuse white and purple, but it's almost a little too transparent in the muddy water.
That's the nice thing about the guys at Nichols, Brooks, and all those guys down there. That they'll make you whatever you want.
Absolutely.
And as a dealer yourself, you get a guy that wants something specific, call down there and he'll make them up for you for sure.
Yeah. One cool thing about the Nichols that I really like. See how those blades are painted? That's actually done by hand. They don't stick them in a machine. There's a girl up there, and Brooks would do it too. They actually paint each blade by hand. Their spinnerbaits are a little more expensive, but they're all handmade. Now, I do not mind paying a little premium price for a really good built spinnerbait. Between the Accent and Nichols and the Dirty Jigs, there's some really, really good spinnerbaits on the market. Guys like Craig Hipsher, Matt Bryan, and old Jeff Evans have won a lot of money in the spring on these spinnerbaits right here. When guys are throwing a rattle trap and a square bill and their bite starts slacking off, you can go that spinnerbait and you can get some really, really big bites. What else do we want to talk about, Brandon? We got open house March 3rd at Kentucky Lake Outdoors. We might run a special sale on Tackle Freaks if you can't come. Brandon, you going to be there March 3rd for a little while?
I'll be there, yep.
So
we'll talk electronics and fishing on Kentucky Lake and anything else you want to talk about.
What about, I know Lawrence had some new updates. You're a Lawrence guy. What do you think about the new updates?
Yeah, it's all kind of new to me. I saw some stuff floating around about some new sonar stuff that they're coming out with. It's still pretty new, so I don't know a whole lot about it yet, but always exciting to see new things. I think they've basically tied into some new colors with your down imaging and your sonar and kind of putting them together. Best I can gather from what I've seen, but anytime they come out with new technology, I'm all ears.
Yes. Boat this year, are you running 520C Ranger?
It was a 520L this year is actually the L boat, so I'm anxious to get that Mercury here and get on the water for sure.
I know they need to send you a motor, so Mercury Ranger, if you're watching, get this man a motor quick. I'm trying to think of what else let's talk about swim baits a little bit. Brandon, you're actually probably one of the guys that really keyed me in on the bass tricks. I'd thrown it before and caught a few fish, but several years ago, you really got to tell me, man, these things catch them and showing how to rig. What are some of your favorite swim baits, and maybe some that guys just don't throw, and some hidden secrets, but you don't have to give them all away?
Well, I mean, it's no secret that the 6-inch bass tricks and the Zoom swimmer and a lot of those hollow, the hollow belly that Berkeley made, I guess they still make that bait.
That was the first one I remember.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's still a good bait, but that a lot of guys there were a handful of guys that kind of got on that deal, rigging it on a 3/4 or a 1 ounce head out there, fishing it offshore, and that's kind of been a staple the last few years for a lot of the big stringers that are caught come on a big swim bait. And it's it goes back to what I was talking about, a confidence deal. You got to have confidence in what you're doing. And one of my favorite ways to catch them is deep cranking. But that swim bait is always right there within reach. I mean, it's one of those baits that if you lay with it, it just seems like it gets those bigger bites. And I played with that Zoom swimmer a lot last year, and to be honest with you,
it's a great bait.
I can't tell that much difference, in a Bass Tricks versus that. Now I used to say, tournament day I'm throwing the Bass Tricks, but I think I've caught just as many on that Zoom swimmer. It's a good one.
And it's durable.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about it is that you can catch multiple fish on that Zoom. Gosh, you can catch a few on it, without having to, rig glue or take it off your screw lock and put a new one on.
Let's see. Let's think of. I was going to add, if anybody's got any more questions, this would be probably a good time to answer. Brandon's got a little girl, so do I. I don't want to hang out here too late. Lawrence, do they do the chart shading like Humminbird? Somebody asked that question.
They do. They have chart shading. If you've got the Navionics, you can actually go on there and change the colors. Now it's a lot different than the Humminbird. It's not like what you're going to used to being able to see on the Humminbird.
We'll talk a little bit about Harris Chain. Those guys are jacking them up.
Yeah, they're jacking them up. I can't remember who was leading. I remember looking earlier, but they're several 20-pound bags. I wish I was down there.
I was going to say, how bad do you wish you were fishing?
Yeah, I really missed it this year. Last year wasn't too bad because the little girl was, she was brand new in January, and I got to. This year, it's I'm missing it for sure. We're coming to Kentucky Lake the 3rd week of May, and I'm hoping that those guys really struggle. I hope the fish are all still in the bushes, and I don't have to worry about it. But when they're first coming out and they're fresh, that's my favorite time. And I'm hoping that the fish are way behind, so it don't make me feel near as bad.
Man, if it keeps warm in water, like somebody be on the ledges in the middle of April.
That's
but
right.
Anyways, man, Brandon has a ridiculous amount of tackle. Best swim baits, 5 inches to 8 inches. Zoom swimmer, obviously, Bass Tricks. What else do you got?
Man,
You got any secrets?
I really don't.
We found this in his box.
The trash.
Surely
fish,
he isn't just collecting the trash fish.
That's one of those baits. I actually fish that one up around. I'll put it on like you actually have one here, like this beast hook, and fish it up around shallow cover. That's a good one for fishing up.
I think a misconception too at Kentucky Lake is only throwing these swim baits out deep, and I can tell you they'll bottom in a foot of water. Brandon, would you be willing to donate a fishing trip on our drawing for our bass tournament April 21st? I'm glad you asked that, Chris. There's actually Chris. He has a tournament there out of Paris on April 21st. God, I forgot the name of it. Don't have the flyer. I keep telling him I'm going to talk about it. Chris posted the information for your tournament on there.
Shoot me an email.
Yeah, shoot him an email. What's your email, Brandon?
It's info@brandonhunterfishing.com. And I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, Chris is a good guy. He's come in the store and he's a sheriff there at Henry County. They have a tournament every year, and it's my fault, Chris. I should have brought the flyer with me. And I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. It's a really big tournament. But let's see. I don't really have too much else to add. I think Brandon really covered all the bases as far as pre-spawn fishing. Do you ever throw? Obviously you catch them. You can catch. There it is, the Carl Perkins Memorial Tournament. Yeah, I think that's familiar with you now.
Yep.
How do you like the new 6 cents wave crankbait? Plan on throwing it this weekend at Lanier. Do you mean the curve? I think he means the curve. I like the curve. I've thrown it, and I'm fixing to film a video about it here after we wrap this up. But man, 6 cents got some good looking stuff.
They do. They're doing it right. They got a lot of good looking baits coming out.
All right, Brandon, what is the one thing you miss most about the tour? Was it the competitiveness or just traveling and fishing new stuff?
I liked fishing new water. Seeing my wife and I were talking about this the other day. One thing that I miss the most is not sitting behind the steering wheel. That's not what I mean. Driving down the road, but I've seen a lot of places over 3 or 4 years that I fished on the boater side. And I fished for 5 years as a co-angler, so I did a lot of traveling, seeing a lot of places in the country that I wouldn't normally get to see. And the competitive, all of us who fish tournaments, that's why we do it, and it gets in your blood, and I miss it. I hope to get back out there one of these days for sure.
Maybe TackleFreaks.com and take off even better. And the more you guys order, they'll let me go out and I'll be Brandon's co-angler. You know what I mean? I'll sell out of the back of his boat during the middle of the tournament. What is the earliest you caught fish on topwater? There you go.
That's a good question. Topwater's really overlooked during the spawn. Those fish will come up if they're spawning around bushes or if they're spawning next to a cypress tree. They'll come up on a frog. The frog is a good one in the springtime. The poplar, Craig Powers, he made that deal famous.
Buzz.
And a buzz bait. I mean, it's, gosh, I think when the water temperature hits 50 degrees, you can catch them on a buzzer.
I bet old Craig Hipster's got one tied on. Yep. All right, so we got a couple more questions. These are good questions. What is the biggest misconception of tour level guys? And the other one is, any good tips for a co-angler?
Biggest misconception?
Mine would be that they have egos. Most of the guys I know are really awesome, down-to-earth guys.
I don't know how you'd say this, but a lot of people are trying to make a living fishing tournaments.
Correct.
And it's, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's tough.
Correct.
You're the biggest thing is the sponsors having the money to go do it, and all we see on Bass Live and FLW Live and the weigh-ins and stuff is the fame and holding up the big checks, and it's not all glory. There's a lot of highs and lows, and a whole lot more lows than highs.
You don't see the guys sleeping out of the back of their trucks. You don't see guys stressing over the credit card payments due every month. And so I've seen that. I did a lot of work for the PAA, and I've seen that there's a lot of guys out there that make less than minimum wage.
There's a lot of guys out there that never get that shot too, and that's the thing is there's if you don't have that sponsor help or somebody backing you, and you never get that shot, you'll never know. I was fortunate to have some people that backed me and to help me get started. And I had somebody ask me the other day, how'd you know you was going to be a fishing guide? Well, it kind of just happened, It's not one of those things you don't graduate from high school and say, I think I'm going to be a fishing guide, So one thing led to another, and here we are fishing. So.
In high school, Brandon didn't go fish. He made fun of me and his brother who went fishing all the time. And we got him out there. He's done awesome. I'm really proud for him. Spent a lot of hours over in the shop over his parents' house. Got some more questions here. Do you fish any wacky rigs? And if so, what size hook?
Yeah, wacky rig is a really good one, especially when they get up shallow, tossing it around and finding those spawners. I can't even think of the name,
Like VMC Neko hook?
Yeah, just the Neko hook, 1/0.
Let's see, when is the YouTube video about spot safe coming? I think we can knock one of those out soon, Tanner. Brandon would be a good dude for me to do that with. He's all up on the electronics. If you haven't checked it out, I need to show you that spot safe app. So you could transfer your waypoints right here to your phone, back them up on your phone. If your unit goes down, they're saved on your phone.
Oh, cool.
If you send them to me and you're like, man, I hope he doesn't send those to his buddy across the country, won't let me do it. It locks them out. It's pretty awesome. Let's see. What else we got here? I missed the intro. Would you focus on secondary points or shallow in spring? I always start main lake.
Yeah, start on the main lake and work your way back.
I just put a video up about how to fish points too on my YouTube channel. So
that's a good one. I watched it.
Check that one out. Yeah, I mean, that could have been a 2-hour video, to be honest with you.
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm going to log off here. I'm going to film a quick YouTube video about wiggleworts and rock crawlers and that kind of stuff bait. I'm actually going to use Brandon's boat for backdrop. But, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. Do me a favor if you haven't, share the video. We'll be back live next week. Next Thursday, I'm going to have Matt Bryan on here. We're going to talk about lipless crankbaits. Matt's a pretty good stick on the lipless. So I'll have all kinds of baits we'll do at the store. And anything else you guys want to see, make sure you comment below. Give this video a thumbs up. Brandon, I appreciate you letting me come over here and do the live video. We'll have him back when it's ledge season. And we'll get some real in-depth stuff. Thank you guys so much. Log on, TackleFreaks.com. Grab them trash fish. your LV500s, your jerk baits. Appreciate everything y'all have made me really busy the last month, and it's definitely appreciative. Everybody that comes on here. Oh, your wife's watching. She's saying, "Get in here." See you guys.